I'm very excited to have Don Jones here, as well as Maria Bezaitis. Maria Bezaitis is fellow at Intel. She studies humans and technical systems, which is very interesting. And Don Jones is VP of Social Impact and also the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Intel. It's very nice to have you both on today. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Camille.
I want to start with you, Don, because I think that you have had a very interesting career trajectory by almost anybody's standards. You started off an administrative assistant at Intel, and now you're a vice president. And I heard a really interesting interview that you did with Krista Vasquez on Finish That Sentence on Circuit, where you said you learned a lot about that helps you today in your current role as a VP from when you were an admin. And so I'm interested in a little more on that. And also, what is your relationship, or what has been your relationship with confidence as you've progressed through grade levels? I'm not sure it's sometimes I think it's not linear. It may actually be inverse. So I'm curious.
Yeah, those are great questions. I think, first of all, one of the key things I learned about being an admin that has helped me in my current job is patience and listening for understanding. Those two, I think, are key when you work in the type of work that we do, which is, Maria can tell you a lot about it, it's people. You need to, in my opinion, listen for understanding. There was a point in my career, in my life, where I listened to respond. I have the answer for that, or I know the answer to that. And you don't get very far until you hear both sides of the story. And then that's when the magic happens, I would say, because you really get a clear view of what the other person is trying to convey. And then you can start to have those difficult conversations. I would say, my path with confidence has ebbed and flowed. I haven't always been the most confident. I don't know anyone who is just confident all the time. It depends on the situation. I remember a time where I wanted a new role and I was waiting for the leader to give it to me. And I just, I was complaining to a coworker and saying, I don't know why I'm not getting this role. I want him to see that I can do the role. And she looked at me very pointedly and said, well, go to him and tell him you want the role and describe the role. And I looked at her like, I can do that? It's that simple. And, there landed me my next iteration of my job, and I moved to Austin, and I did a proposal. I told them why I would be valued in this, or valuable in that role. And they accepted it. And within 2 weeks, I was working in Austin doing what I thought I should be doing anyway. I would say, confidence for me is making sure and ensuring that you're always being true to yourself. And the way that I do that is try to be prepared as possible, listen for understanding, and patience is what I would say.
So, Don, one of the other things that you've mentioned before is you can't please everybody, in a role, or probably in general. But and that knowing that has kind of helped you navigate. And so, I'm wondering, especially when your role is inclusion, how those two things kind of go together.
If we only listen to the people who agree with us, our product, our body of work will not be as strong, because we need those people that bring in divergent views. And when you tie that back to confidence, you have to know that the work that you're driving is the work that needs to be done. And sometimes, the things that are difficult in that space is that I feel like when we talked earlier about the ebb and flow of confidence. Have you always been confident? The places where I've been least confident were the places is where I didn't do the work that was necessary to present in front of VP or present in front of the CEO. It really resulted in me and making sure that I'm doing what I need to do to prepare myself for those conversations and going forward. So, I know that we're mixing a couple of things here, listening for understanding, but when we talk about confidence, for me, it really is, what am I doing to make sure I am prepared to engage with whatever leader, whatever media outlet, whatever person, in order to get across what I need to get across.
I love that. I love that kind of radical respect for context, right? And walking into a situation and having to really gauge who is here, what is happening, and how do I take everything that I've done to prepare to be here to, to contribute and also to take something away.
I want to ask Maria, also kind of on the personal level, I interviewed you for Cybersecurity Inside on Socio-Technical systems. And during that conversation, you mentioned that you're a parent. And so I'm wondering how, especially maybe over the last couple of years, whether confidence has kind of affected just the way that we've been working and all of the changes that have happened, and just kind of that intersection of being a parent and working from home and dealing with everything that's happening, and how confidence played a role in all of that.
I remember the conversation, and I think I've learned some really clear lessons about confidence in the last few years, and that coincides, of course, with my two boys who've entered into their full-fledged teenagers. I have a 15-year-old and a new 18-year-old, and as kids kind of grow into that age, I think as a parent, you're dealing with these humans that have agency and an identity and their own needs and their own demands and their own relationship to you and to the world. And so one of the ways in which I encapsulate confidence for myself is just this kind of what I've thought of as this long kind of protracted process of getting my ego out of the way. And I think it coincides really nicely with what Don was saying about listening to understand. And managing, even in these almost kind of claustrophobic times, right? We're still indoors largely. We're still kind of spending our days with people on a sort of nonstop basis. If we live with other people in our homes, and it's really easy just to react quickly and not think. And so I've found that sort of. My teenagers really, I think, have kind of forced me to really reflect on the ways in which it's important to just, stay silent and wait and be patient and not think first from yourself. I get a lot of this also in my professional role. I do a lot of interviewing of people, and I've found that sometimes the most interesting insight doesn't come immediately in the answer. It comes when you wait after the answer. And you sit and you listen, and then the next thing comes out. And just creating that space where you can wait and stay in the silence and give this person the opportunity to continue to reflect and to share something with you can often turn into a real gift and produce real gems.
I think that's really good advice. In fact, I think that that's always been the case too in meetings. If you get to the end of a meeting and then everybody, or you stop the recording, that's when, people say, well, I got to tell you this one time. And it's like, well, you just kind of shared a whole new light that we hadn't talked about before. Do you guys feel like it's part of, I'll just say, our job as colleagues, in the greater workforce, to elicit or help encourage confidence in other people? Or is that a personal thing? Or, is there even a way to do that? Or is that sort of demeaning to assume you might be able to help somebody with it?
I think it's an act. I think we could all use to learn, we could all use to be a little bit more generous with our peers and our colleagues wherever we are. For me, that's one of the greatest gifts I got from my mother, who was not a professional woman and she wasn't an educated woman, right? But she led with her heart. I think that ability to kind of look across the room and say, this person needs some support, or I haven't talked to this person in a few weeks. I wonder how they're doing. Let me just check in with him to see where they are. Those are some of the greatest gifts we can give our colleagues, and they are often the most overlooked.
I agree. I also think, part of confidence is empowerment. People shy away when they don't feel like they're empowered. I was talking to one of my daughters. I have two, 130 and 126, and I told them that I was doing this discussion, and we talked about when they were younger and they had an issue with their teacher. I would say, okay, you need to go in and talk to your teacher. And this was, junior high, high school. And they would always say, well, you're the mom, you're supposed to go talk to the teacher. And I said, well, I'm not there. I don't have the full context of the story. You do. I am empowering you to go and talk to your teacher. And my oldest daughter said, that's how you instilled confidence in us. You made us understand what the problem was and then go deal with it directly. And I think part of it is empowering people to be okay. My younger daughter, I would test her. We would be doing, multiplication, and she would say the answer, and I would say, are you sure that's the right answer? And she would pause, and then she'd say, well, I'm not sure. And I said, well, you need to be sure about your data. And I said, that is the right answer, but don't let the fact that I'm asking you a question about it make you change your answer. I'm just asking for understanding. And I think a lot of times when we get in, especially when we are delivering content in open forums or to leaders, if they start to question our content, then we start to question ourselves. And the truth is, it's okay for them to question it. And it's also okay to say, I'm not sure about that particular piece of content. Let me get back to you. And a lot of that for me, or all of it for me, is the empowerment to give people space and grace to deliver their content. And if it's wrong, we'll come together and we'll fix it and we'll move forward. So I think it is our responsibility to help where we can. And it helps Intel when we're talking about this in context of the company and the environment. When we come together and empower each other, it helps the company grow and innovate and be more creative, because that next presentation could be the presentation that takes us in a different direction than what we potentially were going in.
Do you think that there's more of a burden to show up appearing confident the higher your title or grade level?
Maria, you want to take that one, or I could start?
That's a really good question. I think I've become aware of more of a kind of obligation to be aware of the authority that I present with before I've said anything. And I am working to become more sensitive to that and to sort of work from the standpoint that it's not my job to talk first, in part because I'm often the more senior person in the room, and to just be more responsible and respectful with how I use that authority.
Yeah, I like that. And I also think, for me, I'm confident because I'm in that room. I deserve to be in that room. And I have ascended to the point of being whatever room it is, from an administrative assistant to when I worked in public affairs. But I also understand that I don't know everything. And I think, at times we mix up confidence with having to know everything. And you cannot possibly know everything. You can study as best as you can. You walk in with the data that you have available to you. You are humble when you don't know, even if the reactions that you receive back from those in the room are not favorable. You did the best that you could with the information that you had. So I never feel less than or less confident as I've grown, because I feel like I've earned the right to be in that room as I've navigated my career. And that gives me a certain amount of confidence. But I don't go in with, I know everything either. There's at times where I don't, and I have been stumped, and I've been asked those tough questions, and it is a blow. it's a blow to ego, right? I thought I studied and my team got me ready and I know every data point, and then someone asks a simple question and you're left there like, oh no, maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did. But the truth is you do. It's just you can't know everything, and you have to be okay with that, and you have to come back and say, I don't know at that moment, but I'll get back to you. So I haven't had a problem with confidence as I've grown my career because I feel like that I've earned every room that I've made it into.
I was just in a meeting actually this morning, and I was asked to share these slides in preparation for a meeting with Pat and ELT in 10 days. And instead, I elected to kind of just share what I was struggling with and a question that I was struggling with framing. And it wasn't particularly well thought out. And it's a challenging topic that I just wanted to kind of bring to the group. And immediately 6 people turned their cameras on and engaged. And that was surprising and really wonderful, because all of a sudden that question, instead, I could have just shoved a bunch of PowerPoint slides at everybody and said, here's the drill, we're going to march from here to here, and this is how we're going to get there. And instead, just kind of sharing my own uncertainty was a really important enabler for the others on the call.
I'm assuming the cameras on meant they wanted to participate and pay attention, and they weren't going to be doing email.
They wanted to participate. Yeah. And these are meetings where that's tiresome for people, right? So everyone is making more deliberate decisions around when to flip the camera on and when it's required or when it actually matters, because it's tiring to be on camera all the time. But that moment just told me something, that all of a sudden they had to weigh in that they wouldn't have found had I operated differently.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Letting people into the room. Interesting ways of doing that in the virtual world and how it's a little bit different.
Yeah, you have to, what it means to share your own uncertainty about something. Like, I don't really know how we're going to do this. And I'm struggling with how to, call this particular elephant in the room out. And, I don't, how do we not get into hot water, but how do we remain true to what we're trying to get done? And I think, and that sort of openness, I think was really helpful.
What do you guys do when you, if you've lost confidence, like I think, Don, you were saying everybody has from time to time. That would be my experience in chatting with people. So do you, is it phone a friend or dive into the research, or, what do you, spend time with family? Like, how do you kind of get it back? And it could be you lost it because, you didn't know the answer to something you should have, or it could be for whatever other reason.
Yeah, for me, I think it's all of the above. I think, having a good network of people that you can go and explain the situation, whether it's a personal issue or a presentation that you just felt like you bombed, having someone there who is not just going to say, well, it's the other person's fault, you're great, but telling you the truth. Oh, based on what you told me, maybe you could have did this a little bit differently, and maybe next time you will. Or, based on what you've shared happened, we're here to help support you. And I think the support group, basically what you asked earlier, is it our responsibility to help others lean into being confident? I do think it is. And I think that it helps in these situations where we tend to lose confidence, because it happens to all of us, male, female. It happens around the clock. It's just that some people present that they haven't lost confidence, but then they go home or go elsewhere, and the real thing comes out. My family is a great sounding board for me now that my daughters are older. They just give me a very different perspective on things that I might think are just, oh, the world is ending, this happened, and they say, Mom, that's not that bad. Let's walk through this. Let's, pull it apart. What can we do better? So I think having a good group of people, whether it's your sponsor, your mentor, your boss, your leader, someone that you can confide in. And it takes an amount of vulnerability, right? It's what Maria was saying earlier, to be able to be vulnerable, to say, I don't know, I don't have all the answers. Frequently, depending on grade level, people think you have all the answers. It's just magical. You become a VP and now you know everything. And it's like, no, that's not necessarily true. And that vulnerability allows others to see you as human, but it also allows you to get the support of the people that you need to help you grow in your confidence, especially when you've maybe lost it or have maybe stuttered on it a little bit on your journey, because I think you can always get it back. It really is about who's in your circle and who's there to help support you.
Do you have a perspective on that, Maria, you wanted to add?
No, Don said so many perfect things. I agree. No, they all resonate. I have to say that as we were talking though, I was kind of like, I was recalling another situation where my own confidence was sort of nudged in the wrong direction. And so I'm in the passenger, I'm teaching my 15-and-a-half-year-old how to drive. And I will tell you, I am not confident in the passenger seat when he's driving. and there's this constant negotiation with him because, he's right next to me, and any reaction I have is a reaction he's going to have behind the wheel. And so it encapsulates so beautifully, how much discipline you have to have around your own body and emotions when you're really trying to create space for somebody else to learn how to do something.
Very interesting. Well, thank you both so much for coming on, having this conversation on confidence today. Is there any final thing either one of you wants to add?
I just appreciate you giving us an opportunity to talk about this topic, because there's a lot to unpack here. And there's a lot that it is contingent upon your personal beliefs and how you believe about yourself. And you are good enough, and give yourself permission to be good enough. That's what I would say.
And when you're not good enough, just get back to work. Get back to work and, and show up the next day.
Great advice. Thank you both very much,
Absolutely.
Maria Bezaitis, Fellow, and Don Jones, VP at Intel.